So I stole this idea from Scrum 5, I'll be totally honest, but I thought it could be fun for us to pick a regional 15. I'll say mine, and then we can have a discussion in the comments about what you think and give me your thoughts on some of the players. So I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to get straight into it and start with number 1, and that's Gavin Jenkins. I mean, this is probably going to be everyone's choice on the channel in the comments because, I mean, how good was Gavin Jenkins? Definitely, in my opinion, the best prop Wales have ever produced, and I think one of the best props in the modern game. He was just so good at everything. It was a solid scrummager. It wasn't his most impactful part of the game, but it was always good enough to keep a scrum working. But it was just around the field is where he really excelled. In attack, everyone can surely remember the try against Namibia in the World Cup when he sold like 15 dummies. And then he also had the big charge down of Ronan O'Gara in 2005, and then literally outpaced everyone. Good footballing skills, and then dotted it down to get us going in that final. And then he's just so good. I remember just whatever team he was in, you got to remember he was in teams with like Warburton, Tiprick, Martin Williams, and he was almost always second in the turnover chart. And for a prop, that's brilliant. So Gavin Jenkins, great servant for the Blues. I think he was at the Celtic Warriors as well. So yeah, Gavin Jenkins, my number 1. Number 2, this one was a little bit more difficult for me, but I have decided to go with Ken Owens. I did toss up with Richard Hibbard because Hibbard in his pomp was outstanding, especially for Ospreys, for Wales. He was brilliant, really explosive. But I think Ken Owens deserves this because of his just longevity, how sort of he's always been part of the Scarlet setup, and he's always been really consistent for them, always gives 100%. And yeah, you can tell he's passionate. He's passionate about playing for Wales, passionate about playing for the Scarlets. He's at the end of his career now. He's had a real long career, and it's been a very good one. I hope he gets over this this big injury, and he can finish maybe this season, or maybe have one more year with the Scarlets, because I would hate for him to go out with a big injury like he has, but it is his back, so who knows. But anyway, yeah, Ken Owens is my number 2, the Sheriff of Carmarthen. And number 3, this one's also quite obvious, I think, and that is Adam Jones. What a front row that is. Adam Jones, everyone knows what he did. He's got such a recognisable face and appearance with his hair. But he was the cornerstone of the Ospreys when they were the Galacticos. And he was just tremendous for the Ospreys in Wales. Not the most busy player around the pitch, but we didn't need him to be. He was so solid in the scrum that he could not do anything for the whole game if he didn't want to. He was just so invaluable in that position. So yeah, Adam Jones, number 3 for me. Number 4, another Osprey. No surprises again. Alun Jones. I mean, you can't say enough. There's not enough hyperboles for Alun Jones. His career has been amazing, spanned nearly 20 years. He's spent almost all of it at the Ospreys. So when you're talking about regional players, he never left the Ospreys really, except for the last year or so of his career. And he was a servant the whole time. He was very rarely injured as well, so he was always available when he wasn't with Wales. And his passion, he was the captain. He was captain at times. He was just brilliant for the Ospreys, and he always treated every game at 100%, like we've seen him for the internationals, and we saw him for the Ospreys. So yeah, he'll be sorely missed from the world of Welsh rugby and just rugby in general, I think. But yeah, Alun Jones, number 4. Number 5, this one may surprise a little bit, but I did toss it with Paul Tito, but I didn't want it to be all Cardiff players because I am biased. But I've gone with Via Fafita. I just think I know he's still currently playing, but I just think he's superb. I know he hasn't been necessarily in the regional setup for very long, but that just shows my opinion of him. He's just a complete difference maker at second row. You don't get second rows being able to do what he does. He literally makes breaks in the centre field like backs do. He's running down the wing like wingers. He's unbelievable. He's explosive. He's fast. He can play across the back row too. So getting him in at second row, you got basically a number 8, a 7 and a 6 all in this rolled into one in the second row, and probably an inside centre as well. You could literally play anywhere as just one of them players. He's just so explosive. It was a unbelievable, brilliant signing for the Scarlets. Don't know how long they'll be able to hold on to him for, but Scarlets fans and Welsh rugby fans enjoy him while he's here, because he is absolutely a freak athlete. And number 6, I've gone for a personal favourite of mine, and that's Andy Powell. Andy Powell came from, I believe it was the Scarlets to the Blues, and then he just absolutely burst onto the scene. Played a lot of 8 at first, but then Xavier Rush came, so he moved to 6, did interchange between those two. Obviously had an impact for Wales, went on the Lions tour, but he was brilliant for Cardiff. He was just so explosive and exciting, and he just constantly always had a go, and he didn't really care where he was attacking from. He just always attacked, always big strong carries, really exciting. He's a bit of a character. Anyone who's seen like interviews with him can obviously attest to that. Anyone who knows him seems like they think he's crazy. And what a player. He was just so explosive. And for Wales, he was explosive. Only had like a short, maybe in when you think of like other more international players, he only had a bit of a short window, really, a few years. We all know what happened with the golf buggy thing. But in those years, his impact, especially to Cardiff, was unbelievable, and to Wales as well. And I don't know if he's going to make many people's list of this, but for me, he was one of my favourite regional players, especially when I was watching when I was a bit younger. So Andy Powell, number 6. Number 7, this was a tough one, because anyone who watches this channel knows that I absolutely love Sam Warburton. And I think he's probably one of the best players Wales have ever produced. Definitely top 5 for me anyway. But the player I have actually gone for instead is another Cardiff player, I'll be honest. But it's Martin Williams. Martin Williams was unbelievable for Cardiff. He was always fit, always give 100%. He was just a different player. And it's easy to forget now when we've been witnessing the likes of Tipperick, Warburton, and now Jack Morgan. It's easy to forget just how good Martin Williams was. He was a different type of player. I know probably the game moved on from what he potentially could be now, because he was all about silky skills. He was like a thinking man 7. Although he was physical, he wasn't the biggest player. But he was brilliant. He was brilliant for Wales, and he was brilliant for Cardiff. He was always had good performances, captained the side, and he had such a long, prolonged career. I think he was also part of the Celtic Warriors. He was one of the players who came to Cardiff from there. And he was just brilliant for Cardiff, brilliant for Wales. What a player. Seems like a really genuine, nice guy. He was the first sportsman who I read their autobiography as well, so soft spot for him there. And what a player. And I'm really happy to see him. He's clearly a big part of the Wales setup now. Shows what Warren Gatland's thoughts are of him. I remember when Martin Williams retired internationally, and then when Gatland came in I think it was 2008, he dragged him out of retirement and brought him into the team. And he was in that game where we beat England, and they put 13 Ospreys players in. Martin Williams was one of the non-Ospreys players, and that was just how good he was. So Warburton was brilliant, obviously, but injuries, he had a lot of time where he played for Wales, not that many games for Cardiff in the grand scheme of like what Martin Williams did and what Martin Williams produced on the field for Cardiff. Had some great performances and played in big games for us. So number 7, Martin Williams. John Barclay was sort of teetering on the bench for me, because of what he did when he was at the Scarlets. They obviously won the league, I believe, when he was there. But nobody can beat Martin Williams for me, personally, on a personal level. Number 8 is going to be Toby Faletau. When he was at the Dragons, he was so explosive. Not that he's not now, but he's a different player. But he was brilliant for the Dragons. He was just been, how good is Faletau? He's been immense for Wales. It just showed in the World Cup just gone that even now he's still so influential. He was so influential when he was been playing for Cardiff this year, and he was so influential and good in what was pretty much a poor Dragons team when he was there. I know he ended up going to Bath and stuff, but he was brilliant for the Dragons when he was there, and what a player they sort of developed there. And I hope he gets to come back fitness and finish another couple of years, hopefully at Cardiff, but maybe another year or two for Wales. But Faletau, what a career, what a brilliant player he's been. Great. And I needed to put a Dragons player in here as well, so no offence, Dragons fans. But that's the pack. If there's anyone you don't agree with in there, write it in the comments. I definitely want to hear your guys' teams and your guys' thoughts on my teams, if there's any players you would have put in or not. But we'll move on to the backs. And the first back I'm going to go with is scrum half. Who else can you go with other than Mike Phillips? I mean, Phillips was superb for both Cardiff and Ospreys. When he came to Cardiff from the Scarlets, same as Andy Powell, he sort of burst onto the scene. He was so attacking. He was a little bit faster when he was younger, still had the size. But I remember the first couple of years when he was at Cardiff, he was just constantly breaking around ruck time, sniping at the rucks, and he was just so good at attacking. He sort of lost a bit of pace as he got more mature, and then changed his game to be super physical. And then he obviously went to the Ospreys, which I was heartbroken about at the time, and competed with Justin Marshall, and just shows how good he was to be able to compete with Justin Marshall, who was just come away from playing for the All Blacks. Do you know what I mean? And he was brilliant for both Ospreys and Cardiff, and for Wales, obviously. And what a player! Just so exciting, just a different scrum half. There's not many scrum halves that played the way he did. Just so physical, and so physical in defence as well, which was a real point of difference in his play. Superb. I absolutely love Mike Phillips, and he was such a wind-up. When I used to go and watch Cardiff play a lot, and when he was on the pitch and the cameras are not sort of on him, he was and you actually can watch a player, he's just constantly doing, like, I wouldn't say dirty stuff, but like grabbing people and like throwing the ball in their face and pretending like nothing happened. It's just, I know it's like not the best thing to do, but what do you want your scrum half to do? Wind people up, and that's what he used to do. So yeah, Mike Phillips, my number 9. Number 10 is going to be a controversial one, and again, it's my Cardiff Blues heart coming out. I'll probably get a lot of jip in the comments from this. If you don't subscribe already, you should subscribe, but you might unsubscribe after this one. But my number 10 is going to be Nikki Robinson. I know this is an absolute crazy shout, but I really was contemplating Stephen Jones and Dan Biggar. I was going to go with Jones over Dan Biggar, but I actually thought Nikki Robinson was just so brilliant for Cardiff over his tenure. He never managed to make it work for Wales. He didn't have that many opportunities, and when he did, he just couldn't ever seem to get it going. And I think it sort of sullied people a little bit on how good he actually was. Granted, his goal kicking wasn't as good as someone like Stephen Jones or James Hook or Dan Biggar. I hold my hand up to that one. But when Ben Blair came to Cardiff and took the kicking duties off, sort of unleashed the shackles and the pressure, and Robinson could just play his natural game. It was deceptively fast. Service was brilliant, and he really had a good eye for a line break, and he could always sort of take defenders on. And I think he was one of the most underrated Welsh players. I think he could have had way more caps. But like I say, he was in a good period where you had like Stephen Jones, players like that. I was literally going to put Stephen Jones, but I couldn't let Nikki Robinson down. He was just brilliant for Cardiff. And he had a period of time where Cardiff actually were quite successful. And I think it was the Lions, and he wasn't part of the Welsh setup, but there was contemplation of them taking him on the Lions. That's how good he was playing. So that just shows. But I'm probably going to take a lot of flack for that one, but I actually don't care. The Prince of Cardiff. So Nikki Robinson is my number 10. Number 12, got to be Gavin Henson. I did flutter with having Regan King at 12, but I've gone with Gavin Henson because he was just a different level to anyone that sort of was around at the time. When I started really getting into rugby, as he sort of started coming onto the scene, and he was just immense. He didn't look like he was moving fast, but he just would glide across the pitch, and he was deceptively fast. He had an absolute monstrous boot, so strong in attack, and just actually an unbelievable defender at 12. He was just so good at like reading the game and putting in big hits, knowing when to take the ball in, and he gets a lot of flack now because of just so much potential that got sort of let down by maybe his attitude off the pitch. But for a period of time, maybe 3 to 5 years, he was just superb. Like, he could play 10, he could play 12, could play 15, played all for the Ospreys, mainly 12, where I think, well, that was his best position, because obviously that's where he played for Wales. But what a player. He could do everything, and it was such a shame that he didn't reach the potential he could have, because he could have been an all-time Welsh great. But instead, we only got to see like a short career from him, really. He ended up messing around, went to different clubs, always seemed to just get in trouble. I remember he came back to Cardiff and then got kicked out of the team because I think he was like drunk on a plane throwing stuff or something weird. I think when he went back to the Dragons towards the end of his career and he'd sort of matured a bit, I think you saw a different side of him, and when he was playing at like Bristol and stuff, when he was playing more outside half, a bit more mature, a bit more calm as he got a bit older. But when he was in his pomp, I mean, he was just, in my opinion, he could have been one of the best players the Wales have ever produced. Everyone can remember the tackle against Matthew Tate, but I think even in that Grand Slam in 2008, when Gatlin came in, he was better in that Six Nations, in my opinion. He was a lot more just controlled, solid, sturdy, nothing flashy. He just always took the ball in at the right time, always made ground, always just was a monster in defence. And Gavin Henson is my number 12. So because I put Gavin Henson 12, I had to put Regan King. I didn't want to bury the lead, but I had to put Regan King 13 because, I mean, don't get me wrong, there was lots of brilliant other centres, and this, along with back row, is where I struggled the most. Regan King was unbelievable for the Scarlets. He's one of those players, if the rules were now, where after like 3 years of your residency you could play for Wales, I still think he would have hit like 50 or 60 caps, because he had got one cap for New Zealand, and then he could never play for Wales, which is just a travesty, really. Because we would have loved him at the time, and I know how much Llanelli and Scarlets fans absolutely loved him. What a player he was. He was just so classy. He was another one similar to Henson who like sort of glided. He didn't ever look like he was going that fast, but he was just sort of like floated across the pitch. It was mad. The skills, the silky skills were just so good. He used to just put players into space. He would have like a nice outside arc break. Deceptively strong. He was just a typical classy, like New Zealand import. And I think he really ingratiated himself into like Llanelli and Welsh life, and I think they really took him on board as like one of their favourite sons. And I used to love him as a kid, even though I was a Blues fan. I used to love watching him. What a player! And it's like I said, shame he couldn't play for Wales, but he was so good for Scarlet, and he was there for quite a while. And I think they won the league at one point when he was there, when Stephen Jones and that was there. So what a player Regan King was. I did flirt with Laulala. He was so good, but I didn't want to keep putting Cardiff players in. Same with Shanklin, same with Roberts. Roberts didn't hang around as long, so that's why he didn't necessarily get in the team. Shanklin was brilliant, but he didn't have the skills that Regan King had. But so that's my centre partnership: Gavin Henson, Regan King. That would cause some damage. And then on the left wing, who else other than Shane Williams could be in this team? The complete and a Welsh wizard. I don't think we'll ever see, especially not for Wales, but I don't think we'll see a player like Shane Williams ever again. He was brilliant for the Ospreys. You do for the Ospreys exactly what he did for Wales. He had a real struggle at the beginning of his career where, especially when like Steve Hansen, Graham Henry were there, they were saying he was too small. He wasn't going to be physical enough and big enough, and needed to work on his defence, needed to bulk up. And he just sort of went away and decided, I'm just going to play rugby the way I want to play rugby and just be exciting and free flowing and attacking. And he made himself to the point where they had to put him in the team. And everyone knows then how his career went. Wales' all-time top try scorer. What a player. He scored so many amazing tries for Wales. Was part of so much of Wales's success over his career. The amount of important tries he scored to pull Wales out of games, to the vital score at the end of a game to get Wales the win, and just he could just beat a defender in a phone box. He could probably step 3 people in a phone box. It was unbelievable. I've never seen a player just dance on a spot the way he could. And like I said, I don't think we'll see a player like that now. You don't necessarily. I can't think off the top of my head a current player that was anything like what Shane Williams was, and that might be biased because we're Welsh, but yeah, that was he was unreal. He was unreal for the Ospreys, unreal for Wales, and yeah, what a player Shane Williams was. So the right wing, I really struggled with the right wing and fullback. Shane Williams picked himself, but I couldn't work. I was basically stuck between 4 players. So I was stuck between Mark Jones, Lee Halfpenny, Liam Williams, and Lee Byrne, all for these 2 spots. I did decide to go with Lee Halfpenny on the wing. What a servant, only recently retired. For Cardiff, when he burst on the scene, he did play a lot of wing, and same for Wales. And he was just so fast. It's crazy to, unfortunately, due to injuries and stuff, as his career went on, he lost quite a bit of that pace. But he was so fast when he first burst onto the scene, and he just never put a foot wrong. He just did everything right. And he was just consistent. I spoke about him in one of my recent videos. I think it was after the Barbarians game. And people just talk about how professional he was, what a nice guy, quiet. But what an animal on the pitch. And he could have easily gone at fullback. But I wanted him on the wing to make room for fullback. But yeah, Lee Halfpenny, brilliant player. He also went abroad, did well, and then came back to the Scarlets, and unfortunately injuries sort of plagued the tail of his career. But what a player he was for both Cardiff and for Scarlets, but especially for Cardiff. Yeah, he was brilliant. Fullback then, I still can't make a decision now. I can't decide between Lee Byrne and Liam Williams. Similar type of players. Liam Williams was more sort of abrasive, I guess, but Lee Byrne more silky and just, I guess, more consistent. I can't pick. I'll go with Byrne because I can't not pick someone. Lee Byrne was unbelievable. He was unbelievable for Wales. He was unbelievable for the Ospreys. Again, he was part of that Galacticos time when they had just so many world-class players. I forgot to mention Tia Hauler, Jerry Collins when I was talking about the back row. All those players. Yeah, he was part of that team, and arguably they should have won more than they did because they had literally world-class players like Lee Byrne. I remember when he went on that the Lions tour in South Africa, and he was just like otherworldly. He just couldn't be touched. Yeah, he was just so good. He had a big boot, very cultured, and he was very calm, very solid under the high ball, really good at the up and under and catching it on the other side. And he was just a solid all-round player. I will give a shout out to Liam Williams, who was brilliant for especially the Scarlets in the earlier part of his career. So attack-minded, always used to have decided to have a go at defences. And And he was another one who forced himself into the side because you had Halfpenny, who was so good at defence and was in there for his goal kicking and stuff. But you kept having Liam Williams having opportunities, taking minutes from Lee Halfpenny, forcing himself onto the wing, even though he was, predominantly a fullback. But yeah, Liam Williams deserves the respect he got as well. Unfortunately, when he did come to Cardiff, he had that really bad injury at the start of the season, ruled him out. And now, due to the budget situation, he's had to move away. But, c'est la vie. But yeah, that's my regional 15. I'll just run through it in case anyone wants to argue with me. So we got Gavin Jenkins, Ken Owens at prop, and Adam Jones in the front row. Alun Jones, Via Fafita, Andy Powell, Martin Williams, and Toby Faletau. Mike Phillips, Nikki Robinson, Henson, Regan King, Shane Williams, Lee Halfpenny, and I've gone with Lee Byrne. No subs. The only sub for this video is you subbing. So thank you, and I'll catch you on the next one.